just to provide some little bits of light into a couple of things. For example, I give the example Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being established on the throne. What we do with that, we don't take away the whole ayah, we don't disregard the whole thing. We know what is said, it is said. But we have to accept there are certain things we just cannot understand. For example, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's boundaries or who He is, we just can't comprehend this. For example, if I were to get all of you to close your eyes and picture something. For example, just close your eyes and picture me. Can you do that? Close your eyes, all of you. Close your eyes, picture me. Now what I want you to do, you can wake up again. What I want you to do now is, you've all pictured me, however you see me, the clothes, the hat, the face, depending on how far, what angle, to what you know of me. Now can you do the same and just do any car? Your car, someone else's car, do this. All of you? Alright. Now the last one, what I want you to do is I want you to do the same, close your eyes and picture Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Has anyone done it? Laysa kamithlihi shay'un. There is nothing like Him. There's not even a likeness like Him. So nothing that we can conjure, nothing that we can imagine is like Him. If we all try for 1,000 years, we will never come to a likeness like it. This is something we accept. But this does not mean, oh, if we cannot understand Him, what's the point in knowing Him? It doesn't work like that. For example, you get on a plane. You get on a plane. How many of you understand how a plane works? But you still expect it to fly. You do, don't you? You don't get on a plane, if I don't know how it works, it's not going to work. No, you accept there's something beyond me. So we say a similar thing with this. Laysa kamithlihi shay'un. Surah Shura, verse 11. Very, very important. This is a fundamental aspect when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this actually stems into other problems that people get into. Briefly into the nature of free will, but if I get time I'll delve into that slightly, but it's a very big topic. So we come to acknowledge that it's very important to not disregard things completely. We do need to understand certain things. So in this respect, going back to the time where people placed their hands with Rasulullah alayhi salam and did bay'ah. The verse that came down, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Allah's hand was on theirs. So there's different ways. Some ulama have mentioned that this is referring to Rasulullah alayhi salam. And surely this verse would say Rasulullah's hand would be there. But there is another verse that they have used to get this. Ulama don't just pick up an idea and just say, here you go. It's normally done with a lot more understanding. For example, when you go to a doctor, or for example, you're a dentist, you expect them to know certain things. You expect them to have a background knowledge of certain things. For example, going back to this verse, the way some ulama have mentioned, there's another hadith where Rasulullah alayhi salam, he talks about when servants of Allah, when people like yourselves, when people, Muslims, go closer to Allah, he says, those who go closer to me, I go closer to them. This relationship keeps on going. They keep on going. Allah says, they do the first, they do what is obligatory to me, what I've told them to do. And I love this.
Nare Takbir,
Allahu Akbar,
Nare Risalat,
Ya Rasulullah,
Nare Hadri,
Ya Ali,
Nare Tahqiq.
So, going back to this sort of interpretation of Yadullahi Fawqa Aydihim. So some ulama have mentioned that Rasulullah alayhi salam, they've used a hadith which he has mentioned that the relationship between a servant and him, it's a bit of an unusual relationship. Normally in a relationship there's a bit of give and take, but it's usually kind of both ways. But the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the beginning of the hadith, he mentions the type of relationship it is. You do something, I'll do more for you. You come to me, I'll go further to you. That is the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he goes on and he mentions, so he mentions, so he mentions one of the endpoints of this relationship. He says, you go closer to me, I go closer to you. We get to a stage though, where I become your hearing, where I become your seeing, where I become your walking, I become your hands, I become your limbs. Obviously, this stems into one of those areas where we have to accept there are certain things. It is said by Rasulullah alayhi salam, and it is sahih, and it's sahih. There's no ifs or buts about the hadith. It's mentioned many a times. So it's a solid hadith. So we can't disregard it. But there's two sort of ifs and buts about this. We cannot say Rasulullah is Allah, but we cannot disregard what is being said at the same time. So there is definitely some sort of relationship between Allah and the person. And stemming back to this initial ayah, Yadullahi Fawqa Aydihim. It is Allah's hand on them. Now you can see slightly how some ulama have got to this conclusion where the hand of Rasulullah alayhi salam is the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, this is one example where people can get a little confused, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using hand, He's using physical things. So why don't we say Allah's got a hand? So just to emphasize a couple of basic points, Laysa kamithlihi shay'un. We cannot imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is not like us, He is not like anything we can think of. But at the same time, we acknowledge there is much that we know about it. Like I said, going back to one of the initial facts, we've got over 6,000 ayahs of the Quran. And going back to Imam Bukhari, like I mentioned, he's written Sahih Hadith in Sahih Bukhari, over 2,000. But like I mentioned, there are many, many more. In Fathul Bari, which is a very well-renowned book by a man called Imam Hajar Asqalani. He mentions Imam Bukhari has memorized over 100,000 Sahih Hadiths. So we've got a huge bank of information and knowledge, but one of the many things we need to do is pursue this knowledge, okay? So we know much about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we need to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? I think that's about enough for me.
Nare Takbir, Nare Salat, Nare Hadri,